Okay, I think, okay, we're recording. All right, hopefully this looks okay. It looks all right. All right, let's just jump right into this. Hey, you guys. I just wanted to sit down and make a quick little video today. Just to kind of introduce myself, I guess the man behind the curtain. I am SimONAutoAssist. Hopefully, you guys have seen some of my content around on Facebook and Twitter. I also write a blog post. I'm trying to do that, bi-weekly or so. So keep an eye out for some of those. In any case, I just want to sit down today with you guys, and I had a post about my sort of test drive checklist. So things to kind of keep in mind when you're going for a test drive of a vehicle, be it new or used. But it's just something that I think a lot of people are nervous about, and I just put together a quick little checklist of stuff to keep in mind. And it seemed like you guys really liked it, and a lot of people gave me some positive feedback from that. So I figured maybe it would be a good thing to sit down and record myself talking about it so I can put a little more of my own sort of opinions and insight into that. And hopefully that'll just help you guys. So the first item on this checklist is to just make sure everything works. I think a lot of people tend to overlook this just because it seems so self-explanatory, but I think people don't necessarily know what to look for when they're in a new car. A lot of new cars, they're just packed full of technology. So these are features that you probably haven't had in a vehicle before, and you're not really sure what to look for or how they're expected to function. And this is where I think it's really important to just be comfortable to ask the salesman, if they're in the car with you especially, what does this do? What does that button do, right? Feel free to ask. You don't have to pretend like you know everything there is to know about this car, because chances are you don't, and they know that. Even if you've done your research leading into this, they know that you've probably never been in that vehicle before, and that you're not going to be comfortable with where everything is, how everything works. That's why they're there, right? Their job is to sell you this vehicle, and part of doing that is really explaining what the vehicle can do for you. So as I mentioned, I mean, these new cars come with active safety tech a lot of times, which is, we're just on the edge of this sort of technology. This is something that people haven't generally experienced in their cars before, especially if you're buying a new car off the lot. So this is where, again, it comes down to just play around with things, right? Push the buttons. Ask the salesman, what does that button do? It's not wrong. I mean, you're about to spend, the average price of a car in 2017 was about $34,000. So if you're going to hand that kind of money over, you're allowed to push whatever buttons you want to push, right? You need to be comfortable in that vehicle and in that scenario to just try things out, to just practice and see if stuff works. So, okay, that can range from things as small or as, mundane it might feel as the headlights. Play with the switches. Is it a knob? Is it a switch? Is it a dial? Is it a stalk behind the steering wheel? That ranges from make and model. So it's important that you know how that works, how to access those, and then just make sure that they work, right? Because a lot of times on new cars, that should work without question. It doesn't hurt to check though. On used cars, a bulb might be burnt out, or maybe there's a wiring issue that's causing one of the fog lights even. It could be so small, something that is easy to oversee. It's just important to look at all that stuff, including, headlights or the turning signals or the power folding, if they have power mirrors or adjustable seats. Check all that stuff, right? Just play around with it. Adjust stuff to how you're going to use it in your daily life. Pretend as if it's your vehicle. What are you going to do? What are your touch points within this vehicle? And just make sure that whatever these buttons are supposed to do, they can actually deliver on. So the next item on this list is just making sure that the vehicle's comfortable. A lot of people, I think, again, they walk into it and they're not exactly sure what they're looking for with that or how to test that out in such a short period of time. For a guy like me who's tall, the first thing I'm going to look at is legroom, because sometimes that's an issue. So that needs to be sort of my top priority in terms of, is it comfortable? Do I have enough legroom? But for other people, it might be headroom, or it might be hip room or shoulder room, who knows? So that's just obviously the first part you want to look out for. But then from there's a lot of other pieces that sort of fit into things. So it can be, the seats, right? A lot of sedans, especially these days, they're going for a sportier look because that's what's going to drive people away from SUVs and back to sedans, is offering these small, sleek, sporty packages. And sometimes that's sort of manifested through the seats themselves. So they're going to have big, hefty bolsters that for some people are going to be really great. They'll hug you in and they'll hold you tight when you're, pushing it through these curves and bends. For other people, that might just be like an obstacle. Like those bolsters might just sort of impede where you sit and how you sit in those seats. And after, if you're doing a 1 hour commute or more, who knows, to and from work every day, those bolsters can actually be really, really annoying. Like they can hurt after a while. So it's important that you're aware of all this stuff and you really think about it in terms of, how am I going to be driving this? Because yes, you're just taking it on a short little test drive, but you need to be aware of how that's going to then play into your daily commute and the common places that you're going to be visiting. So the next item on this list is just making sure that the vehicle is a smooth ride. So that, again, there's many, many aspects to this, but I think the three kind of key ones to keep an eye out for are the acceleration of the vehicle, the braking of the vehicle, and even like the turning radius. So acceleration, obviously, that can be 0 to 60, or that can be once you're already in motion, but you need to make sure that it's going to make you feel comfortable and confident, even if it's just, merging onto a highway or passing even on a freeway. You need to feel comfortable in that, or you at least need to know what to expect out of that vehicle. It's better than buying the vehicle and then once you're actually using it on that daily commute, realizing, hey, wait a minute, I'm struggling to get past people. In terms of, hybrids, for example, chances are if you're buying a hybrid, you're not looking for the thrill of a lifetime on every commute, and don't get me wrong, the technology has come a long way, but generally speaking, if you're buying a hybrid, it's because you're looking for other things. You're looking for a safe choice and a reliable choice and something that's going to have a positive impact on the environment, or at least less of a negative impact on the environment. But if you're looking for something that's going to be, high power, high octane, like just the thrill of a lifetime every time you put the pedal to the metal, that's something you need to keep an eye out for. In terms of braking, so again, this comes more to a safety issue in terms of, is braking up to par? Do you feel safe on a highway coming to a complete stop if you're going, 100 kilometers per hour? I'll give you an example actually. So the new Tesla Model 3, their sort of cheapest model, they actually had a braking issue that Consumer Reports had pointed out, and they were able to fix that through an over-the-air update. But it's just something that a lot of people who bought those cars wouldn't have tested out. They wouldn't have thought to test that in a test drive situation. Mind you, that's a little different because they'd been waiting for, months and months at that point. So maybe some of them did, and it just wasn't big enough of a factor for them to, forego that deposit or just take a loss on that. But I think for most people test driving regular cars, it's an important piece to keep an eye out for and just make sure that it's not an issue, right? Generally speaking, there are sort of safety regulations that these manufacturers have to meet, and it's not something that is going to necessarily be a safety issue for you, but it is something that I think is important to test out and just make sure it's up to par with your expectations. Another big one that I think is important that is often overseen is the turning radius. So especially if you're driving a lot in the city, especially in a big city with, narrow, crowded streets, it's important that if you need to, make a U-turn on a busy street, that you're comfortable doing that. And hopefully, if you pick the right size car or vehicle, generally it'll be a car, I guess, if you're trying to do a U-turn without having to make a 3-point turn. But it is something to keep an eye out for, and it is something to just practice, right? And don't feel like embarrassed, making a 3-point turn or making a U-turn with the salesman in the car, because that's just something that you might have to do. And they know that, they drive too. They're aware of all the kind of stuff that daily drivers need to be able to do in their vehicle. So just, it comes back to that same sort of initial piece that I said. Don't be embarrassed, right? Don't be embarrassed to ask questions or try things out in a car. just do it. Just drive it like you would drive it if it was your vehicle, because chances are, if it lives up to all that and if it passes your little tests, it will be your vehicle. And that's important that you know exactly what you're getting into when you're, handing over that kind of money. The next item on the list, cargo capacity. So that means just making sure that the trunk or even the rear seat is going to be big enough to hold what you need it to hold. Some people who are buying cars might be looking for a trunk that can hold, a set of golf clubs, and that's really all they need to carry. Other people have families or businesses, and they need big sort of SUVs that can really haul a lot of stuff to and from places. It's just one of those things that I think people expect something, but don't necessarily think to check that on the test drive. But it doesn't hurt, right? Open the trunk, fold down the seats if that's an option. Just get a sense of exactly what you could fit there, and then determine if that's going to fit up, your needs, if it's going to be enough, or if you need to look for something a little bigger, or maybe you can even downsize if budget is sort of a key piece in, your decision-making process. But in any case, it's just important to make sure it's going to live up to your standards and it's going to meet your needs. Up next, we have parking practicality. So basically this is just, again, comes back to you really practicing things very specific to how you're going to be driving the vehicle. So if you're the type of person who knows that you need to do a lot of parallel parking, it's important to try that out, right? Make sure that you're comfortable, and obviously the first time it's going to be a little different because you're not exactly comfortable with the size or the shape of the vehicle. It might be different from what you're coming from or what you're used to. But it's important to just practice, right? Give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, so be it. It happens to the best of us, really. This actually worked out pretty well. I didn't even notice. That's me. That's my name. Oh, it might be backwards on the video. I'm not sure. If it's not, though, comment below if you like that or if you noticed that before I just pointed it out. Who knows? Maybe you did. Maybe you've been staring at it the whole time and not even me. So, car condition. Now, a lot of people might think that this applies more to a used car than a new car. That's not necessarily the case. But regardless, this just means checking for, dents, scratches, chips in the paint, rips in the material inside, scuffs, and it can be anything that you just need to keep an eye out for sort of the condition that the car is in, whether that be interior, exterior. And a lot of times, if they're just sort of minor aesthetic issues, that can be fixed, right? So that can be polished out or repaired by the dealership, but that's something that you'll want to negotiate, hopefully, before you make that purchase decision, and just say, I noticed there was a little rock chip. I'd like you to take care of that before I pick the car up. And most of the time, they'll be happy to do that, right? If it's something as small and as minor as that, that's the only thing that's really holding you back. Even if it's not really holding you back, if they think that's the only thing that's holding you back, they'll be very quick to take care of it because they want you to be happy. That's their end goal, right? They're not going to make a sale if you're not comfortable buying the car. So don't be afraid to ask about stuff like that, and don't be afraid to sort of nudge a little more if they're giving you any pushback, and just say, I'm not comfortable with that car in the condition it's in. I'm going to look elsewhere. And just watch and see how quickly they all of a sudden are able to make those repairs. So again, back to this being, a used car versus a new car issue. I think it's a bigger issue when it comes to used cars, just because you're not as familiar with what they've been through and what the previous owners have sort of, how they've treated them. But I think with new cars a lot too. I mean, they're being transported down highways at 100 kilometers an hour. Some of them don't have protective films on them, depending on the manufacturer. And so it's just important, even if it is a brand new car, to really give it a once over, give it a good inspection, and just make sure that there's nothing that's going to be, you're going to regret down the line that you didn't catch it earlier, or that you didn't get somebody to fix it before you agreed to pay for the car. So the next sort of key piece to be aware of is any sort of undesirable sights, smells, sounds, anything like that. If you step into a vehicle and you smell something that just doesn't seem quite right to you, even if you don't know a whole lot about vehicles, just ask, right? It doesn't hurt to ask the salesman and say, what is that smell? Do you smell that? What is that? And there may be a perfectly reasonable explanation for it. They may say, oh, we just had it in the shop, or an oil change, or a paint repair, whatever it is. And that whatever that smell is will sort of move on in a couple of days even. But other times it can be a bigger issue. Especially in used cars, it could be sort of like a pinhole like a water leak, right? So the water has somehow gotten in, and it might be underneath the fabric. It might be creating this sort of mold mildew situation, and that's obviously going to cause big problems down the line. So that's something you want to be aware of before you purchase that vehicle, because quite frankly, if that is what the problem is, you might as well just keep looking, right? You might as well just walk away from that vehicle. Another thing, especially if you're somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about vehicles, or you're not exactly sure what it is you're listening for in terms of odd sounds, ask the manufacturer or the dealership to have two of the exact same model vehicles parked beside each other and turn them both on, open the hood, and just listen, right? Put your ear up to one, listen, see if there's anything that seems a little out of place, and then listen to the other one. And if they sound exactly the same, then that's good, right? Then you know that's what it's expected to sound like. But if you hear a certain whistle or a squeaking on one, then you know that that's not necessarily what's expected and what's supposed to be there, and ask about it, right? Ask the salesman and say, what is that noise I hear? I'd like that fixed. I'd like that looked at. I'm not comfortable buying a car that's making that noise when this one over here is not making that noise. So again, I feel like I've broken record here. Every single one of these really just comes back to you being comfortable enough in yourself and confident enough in your ability to just ask, right? Ask the question. They're not going to judge you for it. And if they do, quite frankly, if they make you feel uncomfortable about asking questions, that's probably a red flag, and it may not be the best dealership to buy from, because if that's their level of customer service before you're a customer, what's it going to be like after they've already got your money in hand, right? It's all these sort of little pieces to just be aware of when you're buying a car that really fit into the overall puzzle of, do I feel comfortable buying this? Do I feel comfortable buying it from this person? Do I feel comfortable buying it at this price? It can be any number of factors, but it's important to just be aware and just keep an ear out, keep an eye out, keep a nose out, right? And just make sure that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So with all that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'd really appreciate you guys giving it a thumbs up or subscribing even to my channel. Leave a comment down below if there's any questions you have that are still unanswered, or shoot me a message on Facebook or Twitter. I'll link those down in the bio below. Make sure to go check those out as well. Again, I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this helped, and I'll see you guys next time.